Hey Wire Monkeys, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Cabling. This is a great episode that you're not going to want to miss.
Let's talk cabling. Yeah, let's talk cabling. Copper fiber structured right. Forcing day to day and night. Get connected, stay connected, do it right.
Welcome to the show where we tackle tough questions submitted by apprentices, installers, technicians, project managers, estimators, designers, even customers. We're connecting at the human level so that we can connect the world. If you're watching this show on YouTube, would you mind hitting the subscribe button and the bell button to be notified when new content is being created? If you're listening to us on one of the audio podcast platforms, would you mind leaving us a 5-star rating? Those simple little steps helps us take on the algorithm so we can educate, encourage, and enrich the lives of people in the ICT industry. Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What are you doing? You know I do a live stream on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, anywhere I can figure out how to send out a live stream to where you get to ask your favorite RCDD. You know that's me. You know I'm your favorite RCDD. Questions on installation, design, construction. I even do career path questions. But I can hear you now. But Chuck, I'm driving my truck on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. I don't want to get into an accident. Breathe in. And breathe. It's funny, I got a new watch. It's got breathing exercises on. So I've been doing breathing exercises now to help calm me down. Yes. And then finally, while this show is free and will always be free, would you mind clicking on the QR code right there? You can schedule a 15-minute one-on-one call with me after hours, of course. You can even buy Let's Talk Cabling merchandise. So this week's episode is going to be a special one. This week, across the world, organizations are recognizing women in construction. The initiative is led by the National Association of Women in Construction, also known as NAWIC. I guess maybe we do like we do with Bixie, right? NAWIC has been around since 1953, and their mission is pretty simple and it's pretty powerful: to support and educate advancement for women working across every part of the construction industry. From the job site to the design table, executive leadership, all that. Now, if you look around the industry today, the reality is the structured cabling, the fiber, the ICT infrastructure, we still have plenty of room to grow when it comes to attracting and developing talent. That includes encouraging more women to see this industry as a real career path. And that's exactly what today's conversation is going to be about. Today, I'm joined with some professionals who not only are ICT professionals, I consider these three people friends. So it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? So I consider them friends in the ICT world. First one, Shelley Olmstead. She brings perspective from the senior leadership. She helps guide along one of the largest ICT construction organizations in the country. We also have Heather Randolph. She works on the consulting and engineering side, where they actually take the customer's designs, make sense of them, and puts them into blueprints that you, the technician in the field, gets to install. And then let's not forget Teresa Johnson, a second-time appearance here on the podcast. She represents the field and the training side of our industry. With years of hands-on experience and a commitment to developing the next generation of ICT professionals as a certified instructor. We were talking about this right before we started hit recording about all the certifications she has. She has a lot of them, way more than me. So between the three of these, you're going to hear a perspective about the job site, the designing table, and even how the executive level of companies really look at the life cycle of our industry. So we're going to talk to each of them and find out how they found their way into this industry, what does the reality of work look like for them, and what does the future of this industry and what could it look like for the next generation behind them. Now, before we get going too long, let's go and do introductions. Heather, why don't you go and introduce yourself, and then Teresa, you can introduce yourself as well.
All right. So as Chuck kind of mentioned, I work in the ICT industry as a design consultant working for a multidisciplinary MEP firm. And I graduated from Kansas State University in the Little Apple, also known as Manhattan, Kansas, the middle of nowhere. But with that, I got my degree in architectural engineering. Where we focus mostly on, the MEP side of systems inside of your buildings. We also have structural and then also construction management side in our department. So that's where I got really exposed to understanding the construction side of the building. So with all three of those, I went through a really rigorous program and to really understand the ins and outs of all the different type of buildings and structures that we have out there in the world. And then from there, I then packed up my little car and drove all the way across the country and decided I'm going to move here to Orlando, Florida, where that is when then I began my career as an ICT consultant, working on large entertainment and hospitality projects that I just really thoroughly enjoy, and being able to work with a lot of cool clients and projects, and coming up with really awesome, great solutions out there.
You certainly moved to the right part of the country if you're going to pursuing hospitality and entertainment. You're in the right area of the country for that. We have lots and lots of theme parks in our area. Teresa, go ahead and give us the 50,000-foot view of you.
Teresa Johnson. I have been in the ITC industry since before Cat 5. I was doing fiber in the early 90s. And so I came up in the field. I joined the IBEW at a perfect time where they were expanding into the low voltage world. I came up through a service truck and then in-house and then GF on a hospital. I went in the office and started project managing. But all this time, I'm also teaching at the trade school, structured cabling, security, AV, fire alarm, all the limited energy things. And then in 2018, my world changed. Similar to Heather, I packed up my little car from Ohio and moved to Oregon. And it was fantastic. I love the West Coast and have had a lot of opportunities since then. During the pandemic, I moved to Utah near my brother and became an instructor at the trade school there. And I also teach at the college where I'm teaching Bixie, OSHA, and developing their structured cabling program.
Don't forget the FOA. You're teaching them too.
Yes, the FOA as well. So all the fiber, I'm really researching the high density fibers for data centers right now. It's amazing.
Yeah, I don't want to. This is a vendor agnostic show. I want to make sure everybody gets included. Everybody.
Yes, I appreciate it. No, I know.
Yeah. So welcome to the show, Shelley. Why don't you give us the 50,000-foot view of Shelley and how you got in this industry?
Well, hi, Chuck. Thanks for having me on. I'm Shelley Olmstead. I am the Director of Public Relations here at IES Communications. And this is a new role for me. I just stepped into this a couple of months ago. Before that, for 13 years, I was over all of the employee development training initiatives at IES. And for part of that, I was also over the quality. So I was the Director of Quality and Development, and then the Director of Employee development. So I've got to kind of play in a few different areas with standards and the field and what are we providing to customers on a technical level, and then also how are we taking care of our people, making sure they have career paths and helping them professionally grow into the next role.
Heather, what was your first exposure to the construction industry or the ICT industry?
So I was exposed in two different ways. First was, like I said, I came from an architectural engineering background where it was mixed with your MEP, structural and construction students all in together. And so with that, my first internship, well, I guess second internship, was actually with a general contractor, and working boots on the ground for a summer, helping actually build there in Manhattan, Kansas, one of the new dormitories there. And so with that summer, I got your first hands-on experience of what a job site is. Waking up at 5 a.m., drinking 10 cups of coffee in the trailer, sitting down there, in the beginning of the meetings, what everyone's working on, the project schedules, looking at the timelines, the boards, and then actually, like, before I even started working on plans, I'm sitting there flipping through the plans in the trailer, looking at all the sketches, RFIs on the boards, the plans, trying to put things together. I even, went through the OSHA training. I got exposure to pouring concrete myself and even driving the forklifts around.
Nice.
That was really scary.
But then you were confident. Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that was the thing is like I immediately like the first day I was confident that I could do this. Showing up as like the only woman on the job site besides the admin who was documenting all the RFIs and communication. But at that point, I had no idea that I was actually going into the ICT industry or technology either yet, because I was still trying to decide if I wanted to do construction project management or if I wanted to really pursue MEP systems. And so that was like kind of like my first exposure. But then my second exposure to like the ICT industry was a little bit of both. Of where I worked in a hotel in Manhattan, Kansas as a part-time. But with part of that, it was the largest conference center in Kansas. And so with that, we held a lot of events and setups and, different BEOs and taking down different systems throughout the different parts of it and understanding. And they all came to me somehow where I realized that I was the person that was always back there in the IT room configuring all the DSPs and amplifiers to split up the systems for the different inputs and PowerPoint presentations and hooking up setting up the mobile IT racks and microphones and programming everything. And somehow I ended up, instead of getting up at 5 a.m. to work on a construction site, I'm waking up 5 a.m. to go to a hotel to ensure that before their event at 7 a.m. Is opening bright and early, that I'm making sure that all their AV is all configured right, it works all right, it has all their laptops correct. And I realized soon that was a very integrated part of the building. And so with my degree program, and I started wanting to pursue and became very passionate about smart building design and systems. And that's when I decided to then take my next internship and learn about technology and low voltage systems. And then I fell in love ever since.
I want to cue in on one thing that you said, because you talked about how you did construction, you did concrete and a bunch of other stuff. A lot of people don't realize this. Your experiences before coming into, oh, by the way, Teresa, I caught your 2026 code reference there, limited energy. I caught that, just so you know that. I caught it. So your experiences before you come into low voltage and even during it, for example, for many, many years, I was a volunteer firefighter when I used to live in Maryland, right? So I went through the firefighter school, I went through EMT school, went through all that stuff while I was working in low voltage. I'm sorry, limited
energy. Yes.
While I was working in limited energy. And, but and I never really thought that those two worlds would collide. They were two separate things, right? Well, because I went through all that training, I got promoted to being the safety officer for the company, or not the company, that office of the company. So your experiences sometimes outside, not totally even related to this industry, can help you in this industry. A lot of people don't realize that. Teresa, what was your first exposure to the construction industry?
My dad was a builder. I was on a job site since I was 2 years old. My earliest memory was I had a stick with a magnet on the end of it, and I was dragging it through the dirt, getting the nails out of the dirt because my dad was roofing. So that was babysitting back in the day. But my industry, I was very, very fortunate somehow to be introduced very early. I was in Washington State. Boeing was developing their 777, and I was working at an application dependent cable manufacturing company, literally making patch cords. But I also got C-Core and AMP certified with fiber in like 91 or 92. And so what really did it for me was when I asked my boss, how do the wires know that they're twisted or untwisted? I didn't understand electrical characteristics. And that's kind of what drove me into the electrical side of it, but always being limited energy.
I can always, and you can probably relate to this, Teresa. I can always tell how good somebody's going to be in a class by the quality of the questions they're asking. Every single time. When we were at the Big C, the one where they had the high school students coming, right? So me and Caitlin were sitting there at the emerging professionals table, and they were coming up talking to us. There was this one student was asking all the right questions. And then when he got up and left, Caitlin and I both looked at him and goes, oh yeah, he's going to be a future tech. He's coming to this industry. You can just tell by the quality of the question.
And I know exactly what student you're talking about.
Exactly. Oh, exactly. I mean, he was asking all of the right questions. Tell us about your first day on the job when you first came in. Because you probably came in with some preconceived notions coming in as the training director. Oh my gosh, I'm the training director, but I've never done anything in the field. What do you remember about that first day?
Well, I'll back up just for a second because I always jokingly say, but it is actually the truth that I married into this industry 34 years ago. My husband was actually a Tech 1 when we got married, and he progressed through the industry, ended up working in different estimating management roles, went into distribution, did sales. He was a regional division guy for a long time. So I kind of learned because a lot of those types of, especially the sales roles, they'd have dinners or events with customers and the wives were invited. So I kind of got exposure that way. And then watching, and he would come home and tell me what was going on at work or whatever. So I kind of knew, again, I always jokingly say enough to be dangerous about the industry when I came in. But through those connections, that's how I ended up at IES. Because I came from that staffing, recruiting, and training world, and I just brought an outside perspective to a construction type of position or industry. So my first day, it was like drinking from a fire hose and learning what it was about, what processes were being done, what works, what doesn't. So it was a lot of information all at once. What was nice is everyone was very welcoming and willing to show and teach. And even though I ended up, having the trainers reporting to me, they were teaching me stuff on a daily basis of like, well, this is what that means, and this is how we look at this situation. So, but it was intimidating. It was definitely an intimidating first few months, I will say, not just the first day.
So Heather, do you remember what your first day on the job site for doing, ICT stuff, not pouring concrete, but for doing ICT, what was your first day like? Do you remember that?
Wow. I'm really here behind the scenes on a major roller coaster ride. Like, I'm really like talking to some and being around some pretty intense clients and exposed, and was like, because we were looking at the existing site conditions for a new build roller coaster, and I was just like, again, like kind of pivoting back and thinking in my head about my internship and just knowing and again documenting all the different things and understanding how and where all of that underground infrastructure and fiber connections are, and where we can connect back to where are the empty conduits, are they serviceable, kind of things like, just again, that exposure I think to the field in the construction, just looking at everything, is just so extremely important. And it was eye-opening, and it was really great exposure just to help really advance and understand, sit in a room with a bunch of leadership and important people to just really learn a lot and listen. I think big advice I would say with that was also to just listen.
Yeah, they're definitely two different worlds, right? I mean, when you look at the people who only have field experience and the people who have, I'm just going to call it office experience. That could be project management, design, consulting, engineering, whatever. So I'm just going to classify them as field and office. Those are two different worlds, and that's not to say that somebody can't go back and forth between the two, but they're definitely, the concerns to somebody in the field is not necessarily the concerns of somebody in the office, and vice versa. It's just. That's why, you got a little taste there of both. Teresa, what was your first day on the job site like?
My first day on the job site, I already knew how to terminate everything. And so they sent me to go work with these people. And they're like, what are you here to do? And I said, what you're doing. And they were like, really? They were punching down 66. And so I whipped it out faster than they had it done because I'd been doing it for the last couple of years in a lab setting. And they were like, oh. But the thing I remember the most was cutting in my first caddy, or my first wall location, cutting that hole in the wall and knowing that it was permanent. It was It was intimidating. We were in a high-rise building in an executive's office, and I was cutting a hole in his wall. And first time was hard. Of course, I hit the stud, just like everybody else did, and they didn't explain to me, things like that. But that
Always
was
cut horizontally first.
understood.
Yes. And then also make sure you put a trash can underneath where you're cutting out. So that way all the dust falls in the trash can.
No, I invented my own little thing. I would just get any piece of paper and make a cone out of it and tape it to the wall right underneath it. And
Nice.
then everything would just fall into the cone, just a
Nice.
V shape. Yeah.
The question I asked Teresa and Heather was, what assumptions they have about the industry before they entered it. But you kind of already had a glimpse of it from your husband and stuff. So you probably had some preconceived notions. Did they change after you came to work with IES?
Oh, for sure, because some of my preconceived notions were, and I think, probably other women would probably say this too, is that, oh, it's going to be hard because these guys are like, well, this is a guy's industry and a man's industry, and you got to be rough and tumble and be able to, do all these different areas and understand how construction works and tools and all that stuff. So I was trying to, in my mind, like before I started kind of learning some of that and like, okay, well, what does this mean? And, all these types of things. And when I got here, there was definitely some of that, but more or less at that point, IES, we were growing and they were really open to, we just want to take care of our people and we want the right person in the role to help guide us on how to take care of people. So, a lot of my fears about that type of stuff went away pretty quickly.
Heather, what assumptions did you have about this industry before you got into it?
Assumptions. I assumed that everybody knew what ICT was, and I feel like I just kind of assumed that people had common sense.
Well, you probably got surprised on both of those, didn't you? Teresa, what assumptions did you have when you got into this industry?
I was kind of thrown into it, so I really had zero knowledge of structured cabling when I started the application dependent cabling that I was doing at the time. I really had a good idea of the construction industry because I'd lived in it my whole life. I knew the different personalities and how you have to work through those and honestly proving myself to everybody all the time.
Yep. And Heather, your boss was just on the show just a few weeks ago, and he made the same comment. And I told him, and I'm going to tell you the same thing too, Teresa. Everybody starts in this industry with zero knowledge. Everybody does. We all start at the exact same spot. Now it's funny because it's people usually, it's either a family thing like it was with you, Teresa, or you kind of fall into this industry. I don't know of anybody coming up through high school, except for maybe the ones that went through the Bixie thing at the conference, who come out and say, you know what, that's a field that I want to go into. It's just we're just unknown most of the time.
I mean, to kind of caveat that though, I, as a freshman in high school, knew what I wanted to be and go to college for, and that was architectural engineering.
That's fantastic.
Okay, but architectural engineering, yes. But did you think you were doing limited energy stuff?
No, that part, exactly. But I was still a part of the building industry and knew that I wanted to be, help construct buildings.
So you knew what genre you went the construction industry, but you weren't fine tuned to the again, another Teresa one for you. Limited energy. Got to use those 2026 terms, right? One of these days I'll remember to say it all the time. But
I'll tell you a little story about that. How I learned it, which is very interesting. But go ahead, or do you want to hear it now?
No, let's go here now.
Okay, well, I'm at the national training event in Michigan teaching structured cabling to other teachers across the nation. Fortunately, I get exposed to a lot of wonderful people. Palmer Hickman happens to be the person that appoints people to a panel on the NEC. I was able to go on a group trip on a boat, and I was sitting next to Palmer, and I told him I wanted to be on an NEC panel.
Oh,
And
cool.
he said, he knows I'm low voltage, limited energy. So he goes, "What kind of panel would you like to be on?" And I said, "Anything with low voltage." And he said, "There is not a definition for low voltage in the NEC." He
There's not.
said, "You want to be on a limited energy panel." And I said, "Yes, sir, I do." And I was nominated to be on a panel. So,
That's very cool. And you're right. There's actually no You'll hear people, you want to start an argument on the internet, get on there and say, oh, low voltage is anything below 600 volts. You'll start
no,
an
it's
argument.
100.
Right? Every single time you'll start an argument. Every single time. Shelley, what surprised you the most when you got hired on by IES and you were actually dealing with people who came from the field?
What surprised me the most probably is when I went out to the field and I was being shown like work that was being done, or because I'd walk with the customer, things like that. The field folks, I was like nervous because I thought they'd be like, oh, well, she doesn't know what really what we do, and she doesn't understand where we're coming from. So I was nervous about how I might answer like a question if they were going to ask me a tough question or something like that. And it wasn't that way at all. Most everyone was so welcoming and actually be like, Miss Shelley, let me show you this, or, look at what we did over here, and talking me through. And it was really great because it'd be like, oh, well, how did you do that? And then they got really proud to show their work and explain that. And then also, of course, then take the opportunity to explain to me why they should get promoted and what their career path should be, which always opened the doors to good conversations. So it was a pleasant surprise. Like I said, and I think I got too much in my head about, and I think sometimes, and this might be, something we discuss in a minute about just people that might be coming in, ladies that might be coming into the industry, of don't let any of that make you too scared. Like, I don't know, and then they might not want to work with me because I don't know what I'm talking about, or I'm new and I don't understand. Most everybody is so welcoming and wants to show you and wants to be a part of, showing the good things about what the work can look like and what we can do for customers. So
Heather, what surprised you the most when you actually first started working in the design side of ICT?
What surprised me the most, I mean, I'm going to get really design or technical here, but is how many people don't know Revit or BIM, and how
Oh, yeah.
they can't or don't either want to adapt to it, learn it, or understand how that can really bring efficiency to project execution and collaboration and coordination to really, again, help bring light to the field, and how much that can really help alleviate such a large CA effort, or that help with contractors in the field, and just like, again, just realizing the different collaboration, the tools that we have readily available to really help us bring our visions to life. So I honestly think that was probably my biggest eye-opening thing when I first got into the industry, is that how many people are not utilizing the tools that we have in front of us to help us design and engineer better systems.
And that's why I asked you three people to be on this show, right? Because the low voltage industry is more than just being on a construction site pulling cable. And that's why Teresa's here. She's here for that component. And you're here to talk about the design component. There's people who want to be, this kind of interests them, but they don't want to pull cable. But they might be really good with a computer, might be good with Revit or one of those building automation software. That's why you're here. And then obviously Shelley's here for people, because hopefully your goal is to, climb that corporate ladder. So Shelley's here to kind of make sure that, what do you got to do to climb the corporate ladder to get to the, to the C-suite, right? Teresa, what surprised you most about about this field when you got into it?
How technology was just emerging into the normal life. Nobody had phones or even pagers yet. But what I did realize was we were always the afterthought. It was like, the building's done. Now we have to go in there and open tiles and core drill and do all kinds of things that should have been done. I was always going, why? But I have a familiarity with the construction industry, so I kind of know the flow. So it really surprised me that phones and computers were like, oh, and we need that. But to Heather's point, BIM, I've been in the industry long enough that I've lived through the pencil sketch. I know drawings, I know specs, I know, standards, all of that stuff, and not utilizing the tools that we have. The first time I used BIM was in 2014 on the Medical Mart in Cleveland. It was amazing to have that. We had a rolling cart where we could do design in the foyer because we had feed conduits or tray or whatever going through an open area where it wasn't supposed to be an open area, and we had to relocate things, and we knew beforehand because we would put it on the computer and it would show us, look, that's what it's going to look like. And the second thing with the BIM, I got to utilize about 5 years ago, and we were building a hotel. Every day there was a person that would come in with a tripod into every single room and take a 360 picture of it, so that once the drywall was up, we didn't have to look for the box. We knew exactly where the box was. And so utilizing those tools, fantastic. And we absolutely need to do more of that. We have technology. We
Yep.
are technology.
Yep. Yep. That's why I love this industry, because it can go off in so many different directions. It truly does. And so you guys told a pretty powerful stories and how your different roads actually led to how you got in this industry. But once you get into the industry and you get into the office and you start doing the design work, you get on the construction site and you have to wear the hard hat and got to sit in that GC's meeting. The reality of work and the culture can be very, very different. We all know that, right? So let's talk about, what does that experience look like, right? Let's start off with you, Heather, first. Have you ever felt underestimated in a project environment?
Oh, absolutely.
How did you handle that?
So I was thankful. I was very involved in a lot of women in STEM, women in construction, exposed to a lot of that in college, as I've always been very passionate about that. And so I was always having, a lot of great tips and tools and tricks and ideas and mentorships to really help navigate how to be, a woman in this industry. And a lot of them just really told me about understanding your confidence and speaking out loud. Don't be quiet. And so with a lot of that, I've just really that really prepared me well to navigate through the industry. And having confidence, I think, is the number one key. And anytime anyone, underestimates you, doesn't believe you, don't want to listen to you, shrugs you off, whatever, that may look like, but it's just having that confidence. And when you have that confidence and understand your systems and what value you bring to the table, your expertise and knowledge speaks for itself. It might not be right away. It might not be immediate, but eventually that talent, that knowledge, that expertise will speak for itself. It will get acknowledged. It will get noticed. And then over time, consistency builds that credibility. And so I would say that, it really is what kind of helped me navigate through those times where I felt like I was underestimated.
We can get into the whole conversation of how each generation processes social interactions, right? Because I don't want to talk bad about any one generation or the other, because there's differences between all of us. There truly is, right? And the reality of the fact is, take out the whole generational social interaction thing. Everybody on the first day on the job site may be underestimated. But it's a little bit different, because you have that extra hurdle, because you guys were females coming to the job site, and now you're dealing with that whole male dominance, male
masculine,
whatever they want to call that. Teresa, when have you ever felt underestimated on a job site, and how did you handle that?
Well, being in the IBEW, just being in the IBEW. And if you don't know what that is, that's the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. It's the electrical union. It's the oldest union we have. So if you had any preconceptions about union membership, at a time, it had to be, you had to know somebody just to be able to get in. And there weren't any women. Very, very few. I'm always the only female on the job site. So, like Heather said, being a strong woman and having confidence in yourself, it's often, if I have confidence in myself and I have a strong opinion about something and I'm not going to fold, often, I know this is harsh, but I'm a mouthy woman instead of a confident foreman. And so, proof's in the pudding, right? We have to put up or shut up, and that's how we do it in the field. After a while, I would just go do my job and then come back and say, my job's done. And they were like, your job's done. And then they would call me again because they didn't have to babysit me or hold my hand. I was competent. And yes, as time goes on, you get those people that will never accept you, and then there are people who understand where you're coming from. You have the knowledge, and your gender really doesn't have anything to do with that. So, but one other thing, they did call me the hatchet for a long time because I didn't put up with it. And we had plenty of labor. So if you weren't doing your job the way you were supposed to, then I got to get rid of you.
So let me ask you this: have you ever felt underestimated in your roles with at senior level management?
Oh, for sure. Especially as I was newer. I eventually, when I was made to be over the entire training department, there were very veteran BICSI certified trainers that now I was going to manage and dictate, like, this is going to be what our standard is. This is what we're going to be looking for as we audit on job walks. These are the things to put in place. And I had one person in particular who'd been with the company for 20 plus years, had been with Don Fishstein, like when he started the organization. And he knew I didn't know all of the ins and outs. And so he would definitely he would push back and literally argue. We actually ended up in a very loud yelling argument one day, which that's the first time that had ever happened in my career, just because he thought he knew best and he wasn't hearing what I was trying to say about a certain situation. So once we were able to talk it through, and it was when we were writing our standards manual. We have an IES standards manual of how this is the IES way to submit a jack, to pull a cable, whatever it is. And he had very strong feelings about how information was presented. And in that time, I had to kind of say, okay, you're the technical expert. You're always going to be the technical expert. But I'm the person that knows how to create, to write technical writing, put communications together, put content together, imagery, videos. Those were my stronger points. And you have to understand that there's a way to present information that people will learn better from than if you're just like, well, it's this or it's this. And it's lecture the whole time, right? So that was an interesting dynamic. After that argument, though, we were good. We became like buddies. It's like I just had to kind of like prove myself, earn my stripes, that I could stand up to him and stand up for what was right and what we were trying to do with the mission of the department.
He wasn't from New York, was he?
He was.
How'd I know that?
Well, and I will never forget, my favorite part of that argument was when he was yelling. I'm like, who are you yelling at? He's like, I'm not yelling. This is how I talk. And it's like, well, it doesn't make it right.
Right. And funny thing is, if you're yelling, you're not listening. And that's the only way you resolve conflict is you have to listen to the other person. You have to listen to, what they're saying. You can't come to a mutual agreement if you don't understand the other person's position. So let's talk about stereotypes for women in construction, right? The industry's gotten better. There's a lot more women in the industry at all different levels, field, design, and also senior level management stuff. Question goes to you, Heather. What stereotypes do you think that the ICT needs to move past when it comes to women in the industry?
So I think like the stereotype is, again, is that the women are, knowledgeable and credible. I think that it's always just been kind of, a man's world, or they always think of technicians and installers. And again, going back to like, oh, that's, men do all of that. Every time, think about when you do call your, internet service provider or cable TV provider or whoever you're talking to that needs to come out and service, your house or apartment, condo, whatever that is, so that way you have internet and TV. It's always a male. It's a man, right? And so I think that conception is that that's what the entire industry is. And the stereotypes I think that need to move past is that we all bring a lot of knowledge and concepts to the world and to the table, and that we can all support one of another. We all are, unfortunately different, genders, and we are made differently. That means our mind and skill sets are just naturally going to be different as well. And so I feel like when you build a strong team or design or project, it's not built based off of one concept or one skill set. The way you strengthen that and succeed is bringing, 5 different pieces of the pie together. And to do that, you need to bring different genders together.
I'll even go past that. It's not even it's more than just genders. It's also people from diverse backgrounds.
Yes.
On the field side, Teresa, what stereotypes do you think women are still fighting in the ICT industry?
Much like Heather said, we all have different backgrounds, different abilities, different things that we bring to the table. Often in our industry, it's maybe your physical ability of installation in the field, or your sometimes it has to do with how you look at the project differently than the people around you, which is typically the male, and very clear cut. But with my vision, there are shades of gray, right? So the support of other people during this process, of getting to know each other, understanding that I bring different things to the field than you do, and that we could all be successful together. That's the only way that we're going to be successful.
Yep.
And Heather said supporting each other. Women, every time I see a woman in the field, which is rare because I'm always the one, I love it. I cling to them and say, show me your magic and I'll show you mine.
My personal observation here, and I have absolutely no numbers to back this up, other than I've taught 20,000 people in this industry for as far as my day job. And the vast majority of those are people from the field, okay? That's the only thing I'm basing this on. There's no official research. But to me, it seems like in the industry, we're more accepting of women in the design roles, the project management roles, the office positions than we are in the field. We do, because in a given month's worth of classes, at best, I might have 2 or 3 female students, at best. Let me ask you this. What stereotypes about women do you think our industry needs just to move past?
I will say this. I think there is still a stereotype that these types of positions, the more technical, manual labor parts of the positions, are more suited for men. I think that there's been a lot of progress, though, in that area. What we're seeing is success comes down to skill, and it doesn't matter that, if you're a man or a woman. It doesn't matter. Gender doesn't matter. It's whether you can actually perform it competently and efficiently, and make it repeatable. Right? That's what is going to make you valuable on the team, and that's what's going to move any project forward. It's going to move any organization forward. If you can just have your top skilled people doing the work and getting it done and moving to the next goalpost and the next goalpost. So, as more women enter the field, I think that has helped, and it's showed that that part doesn't matter. I think also we're seeing more people in engineering, or more women in engineering, more women in project management. Again, it might be a different perspective, but it might not. They might have the same exact perspective as the guy that's been managing it for 10 years, and they're pleasantly surprised that they're on the same page. And so I think that's one thing that we can see, that gender doesn't matter.
And that kind of comes back to we were just talking about communications. If you can communicate with each other, then you'll understand the other person's position, and you'll find that we're more alike than we are different.
Yeah, and I feel like the good news is that in even like what we're doing right now, and check the stuff that you're doing just on a weekly basis, where you're highlighting real stories and real things that are happening, and a lot of them involve women in the industry. We're just seeing that those shifts are happening a lot faster, and some of the outdated perceptions are disappearing. So I think that's important, and I think you should keep doing what you're doing.
I will. Until either my microphone quits working or my internet stops. I'm going to keep on going away. What are some of the things that a company can do to create a workplace that's where more people, especially women, can thrive?
I think, things like Women in Construction Week are great, that we just had. I love that, and that what we saw on our side of the fence over here and for our organization was there were a lot of men helping organize those events and taking a moment to even just say, hey, thank you, and recognizing that. But also, again, just more of this, more highlighting the stories, showing women in these roles, and bringing a lot of awareness to it. Again, it's about skill.
What can companies do to create a workplace where women can thrive and be attracted to come work there?
I was very fortunate that my first boss, my first mentor, had no problem with allowing me to go and do what I needed to do. He had confidence in me and trust in me. So with that, you have to have the right leadership to be able to allow people to do what they do. I was really fortunate that I had some knowledge, some previous knowledge. And so when I got into the IBEW, my first job had 1,000 quads on it. So it was the biggest job I had ever done. But confidence to say that I could go and do that. You need leadership to buy in.
Heather, on the design side, and I'm also going to let you speak for like the project.
Can I say one other thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
We have 3,000 members in Local 354. There's 128 women.
Wow. Well, there's hard numbers for you. Kind of bearing out what I see as an instructor.
I got some more numbers for you too, Chuck, at the end of this.
Okay, well, you're next. So I'm going to let you speak for the office side, whether it's the consulting engineer, the designer, the project manager. What can companies do to create workplaces where it's going to attract more women, where they can thrive?
I'm going to definitely piggyback off her response with leadership. I really am strongly believe that workplace, work culture, no matter what industry you are in, that starts up at the top of management and at leadership. And I believe that if that is not set in stone, if they don't have that same, believe in the same things, support the same things, of whatever, those skill sets or culture you have in place, it will not trickle down to the remaining of employees, however the business is structured. And so if one of the things is to really support women in the industry, then you need to see that through your leadership. Your leadership needs to start there to really promote it and support it. And that, that really comes down to having that visibility and mentorship, and allowing, younger staff and women, or just women in general, to really be able to thrive and give them those opportunities, to make them not feel, underestimated. And because eventually, you want them to grow into long-term leaders, just like yourself. And so if you're not supporting that and engaging that and setting people up for success, then you're not going to thrive in that environment. They are going to leave to go somewhere else where that environment is set up in such a way, and they are going to thrive, because that's what drives people. Is they want to thrive, they want to advance their career, they want to learn. And if they're in an environment where that's not being supported, then they can't thrive. And so I definitely think it's really starts at the top with leadership and putting in place those type of attributes to help women thrive.
You said you had some numbers you wanted to share as well?
Yeah. So she spoke to that. As you know, Chuck, I recently gave my first presentation at the recent BIXI conference. And as I was standing up on stage and looking down, I mean, we know that this is a very male-dominant industry and within BIXI, and why I sit on the Women in BIXI committee. But is I was standing out there on the stage and looking out at the audience, and just I actually counted what at least I could visibly see of how many women were in the audience of about 85 people, and I could only count 3.
Yep. You also, I think I remember in your email response when I invited you to be a part of today's show, you seemed like you were already familiar with the Women in Construction weekly celebration and the NAWIC, right? Yep. So do you think that organization is doing good? It's actually helping to break those barriers so more women can be attracted to the industries?
Actually, yes. So you know how I told you that previously, and one of my answers was that I was very involved in other women in organizations back in college, that really helped me prepare myself for this industry, to know what I was getting into and going and diving into a male-dominant industry. And that was because I was heavily involved in NAWIC and in college, in the local Kansas City chapter, and was attending their events. And at nationally as well, and I attended some of their national conferences as well, while being in college, because like I said, earlier on in my collegiate career, I was pretty strongly feeling I really wanted to pursue construction and construction management, mostly because I really felt like I was a really strong leader and really wanted to manage, and see myself in that role right away with being in construction. And so I was just really heavily involved in that. And then I also even won several scholarships and awards through the NAWIC program while being in college as well.
Is there a cost to be a member of NAWIC?
I think I think there is a cost associated with it. I can't remember on the top of my head. But it's a national organization, just like BIXI is, or, any of these other industry organizations, or like SWE, which is a Society of Women Engineers. But it's definitely a really good organization to be a part of. And any woman out there, there's lots of local chapters. Look up the local chapters that you may see, on LinkedIn and groups. Try to get involved and see what they're doing locally. Excellent.
So we've talked about the journey. We've talked about how you got there. We've talked about some of the realities, of working in a male-dominated field. And I love how you guys emphasized. It starts with the leadership. It's got to be there first. It's got to come down. Now I want to move the conversation forward and start talking about the future, right? Because the next generation of talent is watching everything that we do daily. So Teresa, we'll start off with you. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for women in ICT over the next 10 years?
In the field as technicians. Because right now with the data center work that is going on all over the country, the estimate is we are 200,000 technicians short of doing the installations for these large data centers. So there is so much work in the field, and not everybody goes to college. Some people go to trade school, some people learn in the field. So I am a field person, even though I went into the office and I'm a teacher now. The field is where women have a giant opportunity to go forward. But continuing on up through the management chain, so that we will have an equal seat at the table.
So I'll throw the question over to you too, Heather. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for women in this industry over the next decade?
With that, I would probably say again is just networking, education, learning, spreading the word are probably the biggest opportunities to be able to get people exposed to the industry. Is first is the biggest thing. It's like what you mentioned earlier is that when we all come into this, male or women or female, is that we don't know nothing. We're brand new. We're super green. And so with that is to, having those opportunities leads to networking, communication, education, social media, all of that I think is probably going to be the biggest, opportunities to really engage and get to people out there to understand our industries and what opportunities that are out there.
This next question is...
Wait.
Okay.
Can I?
Yes, absolutely.
I know I talk like crazy. I'm a teacher. Sorry.
I understand that 100%.
Also shows like yours, Chuck. This show is amazing. I was teaching a IN 101, which is the Bixie's first class, about 2 weeks ago. And my kids had a break or my young men had a break. They were showing each other something on the phone. And I said, what you got going on there? And they turned it around and it was me on your show. And I said, wow, okay. So that exposure is getting out there. People like you, Chuck, that are showing the world our industry, but not just our industry, all facets of our industry.
Yeah. One thing I learned, I've been doing this podcast for 5 years, and I'll be honest, sometimes it feels like I'm just talking to a camera because you're not getting feedback, and it feels like you're just throwing stuff against the wall and nothing's sticking, right? But every once in a while you get a glimpse, just like you just mentioned, right there. And then I had a post. Somebody tagged me in a post. They were splicing fiber in a fiber tray, and they had their iPad on the wall watching one of my shows with me and Henry Frank. And then they were doing that, and they posted on LinkedIn and said, Doc, we're doing, learning as I'm going along. You never know, and this goes to everybody, you never know who's watching you or who's listening to you. That's why it's imperative that you always be on your game and you think about everybody in this industry. So let me ask you, what changes in training or mentorship would help more women succeed in this industry?
I had the pleasure of interviewing two of our really strong technicians that we've got out on a site here in Chandler, Arizona, ladies that were willing to share their story. I talked with them last Friday, and one of them had been in the industry for 19 years, and she's like, it's completely different for her than it was then than it is now, as she was sitting there with somebody that she was mentoring that's only been with us for 2 months, but already killing it. And it's just growing and growing. So, I mean, obviously in the field, management and leadership, we're seeing more women come into leadership roles, again, bringing just past experience and understanding how to grow and communicate with people. And all of those matter. And all of that is great to keep, again, moving any organization.
What can companies do to create a workplace where women can thrive and be attracted to come work there?
Well, first of all, for women not to be afraid to ask for a mentor. I think that's one thing and I know I felt this for a long time when I first came in, is that I needed to show that I could do it by myself. And nobody grows in a vacuum. So that was something I had to learn about myself and get over when I joined the ICT industry. So first of all, women don't be afraid to ask for a mentor, ask for someone to help you. I'm hoping as you're new in the industry, you do get already partnered up with someone that's more experienced, or you're shadowing and you're learning in that capacity. But if you're not, ask for someone. And I think that you brought up a good point. People outside of the industry can be great sounding boards, come with a fresh perspective. So I've got I've had a couple of good mentors. I have a couple of good mentors now, and one of them isn't in this industry. But if we're speaking specifically to women, I would say don't be afraid to ask a man to be your mentor. I know a lot of times we're like, I'm going to find a strong woman, and you should, like I said, have multiple mentors, and that's important too. I think you should have a woman who's done it or in a different higher level position, maybe outside the industry, that can still offer that perspective. But don't be afraid to ask a man to help you as well. Just be like, hey, you're really good at this, and I want to be really good at this. Would you be willing to mentor me, or let me work with you, or whatever, however it works for everybody's got a different, whatever their work situation is or their site situation is. And I think that sometimes we do what I was doing when I first started, is like, well, I can do it, and I'm going to show them, and I'll do all this research on my own, and I'll figure it out. I can figure it out, and you probably can. But it's going to take way longer, and you might be missing out on some great connections and opportunities that these other folks could also bring into your life. So don't discount that at all.
Yeah, I said it a million times on the show. Dad always used to say the best lesson learned is the one from somebody else's mistake.
Dad was right. My other thing is and you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Nobody told you had to. Nobody expects you to, even though you might expect that of yourself. Nobody else does. So be a little vulnerable and ask. And if they say no, that's okay. Find someone else.
Yeah, exactly right. There are going to be people out there who they don't want to mentor for a number of reasons. They don't feel they're qualified. And I talked about that with Teresa, where I said, even somebody who's only got 2 years experience can mentor somebody who's on day zero. Anybody can be a mentor in this industry, and there's so many benefits from mentorship. If you're the mentee, obviously you're in the learning side of it. But if you're the mentor, it helps reinforce subjects that you may not even thought about for a long period of time, because you might not be doing installation anymore. You might not be doing estimating anymore. And it helps reinforce you. It helps you grow as a mentor. It's a win-win-win scenario when you enter that mentorship relationship. It is.
It is. I will also say this about the mentorship relationship, is that your mentors, you're going to have multiple ones over time. So, you might have a certain person as your mentor for a season because that's what you're learning and going through at that time, and that's what they're going through at that time. And that's fine, but you've made that connection, and that's somebody that even later on that you can trust and maybe go back and ask a question to later on, even if it's not that direct mentor-mentee type of relationship. There's also people that aren't good mentors. They might be really good at what they do, but they're really bad at explaining it, and that's okay too. But that's still, again, someone that you could have as a friend, as an ally on site, and move to the next person that might be better at explaining things. That was always our joke in training too. Somebody might be really great at what they do, but they're just not a great teacher of it. And I think that's true for mentors as well.
Yeah, but you don't become a good mentor if you don't. I was telling my pastor's son at church this week, because his pastor likes to tell the story about this, when he was out on this little boat and then a storm came in, and he'd never been on a boat before. And I told his son, I said, next time he tells you that story, just say, hey, Dad, calm waters don't make good captains. And he's like, oh, I like that. And what I mean by that is, that somebody might not be a good mentor today, but you don't become a good mentor if you don't stretch those legs, if you don't go through a couple of those cycles and figure out what does make a good mentor, and always have the growth mentality. When at my day job, I teach. You know that I teach, and whenever I get surveys coming back, if it's not all fives, I always reach out to them. Hey, what can I do to be 10% better for the next class? That's my goal, 10%, because you'd be surprised how fast that snowballs. And you keep doing that, and you keep doing that, and you keep doing that, and all of a sudden, people think you can, stand in front of a group of people and talk without being nervous. No, I'm nervous every time. Every time I teach a class, my stomach's in knots. I'm just good at hiding it, and then I know how to get past it.
I get butterflies every time, and it's like I just know that's part of the process, and you just take that first step, and you breathe, and you go.
Yep.
And I I love that you ask that question, because women who might get asked to be mentors, I will say this: be vulnerable yourself to ask them for feedback. Say, hey, I've been sharing my experience with you. What could I do better in explaining, or what else would you actually need to hear right now that would help you? Because sometimes we also get into this, I'm a mentor, and you talk in these platitudes, and you talk in these very big picture ideas, and big picture, having vision and big picture, you need that, definitely. But helping somebody who's at level 1 right now, they don't need level 20. They need to, they need that first step and that advice to just breathe and make it through the day sometimes. Yep. So I think that's a great vulnerable thing you're doing by asking, what could I do better? You didn't give me a 5, so what could I do better?
Now this question is, it's right in the sweet spot of all three of you guys. All sweet spot. Okay. We'll let Teresa start off first. What changes in training or mentorship? Right. They see how it ties in perfectly there. What changes in training or mentorship, or let's add on career development, would help women be more successful in this industry?
Having the opportunity to be in this industry to begin with, to know that there is a place for us, and know that we can help the projects go forward. Mentoring is gigantic. That is one of the biggest things that helped me. And my mentor was my boss, literally. And him having confidence in me, him letting me call him, and doing things like that. So again, leadership is where we need to go with that.
Yep. And you see why I threw this out there, because most people know Teresa's an instructor, but not many people know Heather. Heather has a huge role in mentorship in this industry. A huge role.
Yes,
That's
awesome.
why I said it was right in the sweet spot. Right in the sweet spot. So Heather, now it's your turn to wax poetic. Right? What changes can we make in the mentorship side to make women be more successful?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is having intentional mentorship programs.
Yes.
And clear career pathways that are extremely valuable to the professionals in the industry, and helping professionals understand the different certifications that are out there that they can achieve, RCDDs, or the technicians, Tech 1s and 2s, or, RTPMs, or even if you're in the security side or the AV side, with your CTS or your PSP, and having technical training options and leadership development can really help accelerate the growth and retention with the women in the industry. And, I say this because going all the way back to what I've been saying is getting involved in networking with those strong women in the industry programs back in college, is I had a mentor then. And this is what led me all the way to my strong, passionate mentorship program that I helped lead in Bixie. Is they sat me down right as I was getting ready to graduate, and we were having coffee and lunch, and I asked her, like, what are some advice to take with me into going into into the career, and she said, find a mentor. And I saw that there was a Bixie mentorship pilot program starting. I put in my application because I was like, oh, well, this is exactly what she told me to do. Let me see how I can get involved and have a mentor in the industry. And then, Lord and behold, I get one of the best mentors matched with me, Carol Everett Oliver. And that then just led to a lot of great ideas, and just a lot of mentorship to really help develop me in my career, to really help me then, be the chair of the Bixie mentorship work group and program, where we really help elevate different professionals and really even get other younger, greener people into the industry, and even seasoned professionals like yourself, Chuck, to help mentor others, to really help them, that growth and that success. And I think that the biggest thing, and one of the reasons why I sought that out is because my company, or, my employer right now at that time, did not have an intentional mentorship program set in place. So where I wasn't even, paired with anybody in my company or my firm or anything like that, to where, helping me lead the way. And so I think a big thing is really having those intentional mentorship programs, even if there's not one set up, help lead one, help start one, or just, take the initiative to say, hey, we have a new employee. I'm going to take them under my wing and help mentor them and guide them and help them expose to the industry. See if this is the right fit for them. Maybe they don't want to design and sit behind a computer all day, and maybe they want to be a technician, or vice versa. Or like I said, maybe they get, I've seen it all the time where we pull people from the AV industry where they've been an AV integrator for the last 5 years, but now they want to make a change and come and learn about the limited energy, and, the IT world and realm and the racks and cabling and infrastructure, or even the security side. Maybe I've done security or design and want to learn more about AV, or, like I said, really strengthening that industry all as a whole.
And talk about hitting the mentor lottery, Heather. Carol, former Big C president, heavily involved in Big C, extremely knowledgeable. That's the mentoring lottery winner right there. That's the $2 billion lottery ticket for mentorship. If a 19-year-old woman is listening to this show right now and thinking about getting in this industry, what would you say to her?
Depending upon which direction she wants to go in, she could go to school, college, and be Heather. Or she could go to a apprenticeship program, such as the IBEWs, which we have a low voltage or limited energy program, and take a 3-year apprenticeship program where they're working, earning during that time. I did want to mention that I teach at the trade school, and I set up my own my own mentoring program. I'd get the older apprentices and have them with the first years. I'd have them first day and say, hey, who wants to come in here? Wouldn't it have been great if you had somebody who was in 4th or 5th year to talk to? And a lot of them, I usually have a good handful of the older apprentices.
Heather, what's your response if you have a 19-year-old woman who's listening to this podcast right now and you're thinking, man, this sounds like a cool industry to be in? What would you say to that 19-year-old?
I would tell her that to be curious, ask questions, and to be confident. If you feel like you're not confident, there's lots of self-growth, self-help books, podcasts, things, and whatever you can do to gain that confidence. But I would definitely say that would be, the things that I would really, key soft skills that I would say to really help you navigate the industry and grow in the industry, because it is a very exciting time. One of the things that I absolutely love about our industry is that it is always forever changing, and that is one of the reasons why I chose the industry and wasn't an electrician or electrical engineer or mechanical engineer, was because I am a futuristic person. That's one of my strengths that I have, in one of the strengths builders tests that we take, is that I have a very futuristic mindset and ability. And I saw the industry changing, 10 years ago, of it being very smart, intelligent buildings and systems design, and that got me into the industry and to learn a lot about it. And so I think that, there's a lot of unknowns out there with our industry, but the way that the ICT industry as a whole, whether you're a technician or a designer, installer, or teacher, whatever that is, because there are so many different ways to touch it, it's really shaping how buildings and cities, and organizations operate, how we operate in our buildings. One of the things I simply tell or try to educate other project managers or people that are trying to help understand if they need to hire an ICT designer, simple question is I always ask, do they need Wi-Fi to operate their building? Answer that for me. Think about that. And so, because, that's something that wasn't a common question, always asked. And so that just I can't operate that, or I can't have business, or I can't drive business, without it. And so just knowing how awesome the technology is forever advancing and growing, is that the opportunities will really be there. We have a really strong job security as well with this knowledge that we have. And then if the other advice that I give people, and some of the advice that I've given to other people, being a mentor myself, that will really help, if you're 19, is if you're looking into the ICT world, learn Revit, learn BIM, because there are so many people who don't know it, are terrible at it, are not competent at it, and it is a major required skill for what we do every day. And if you are able to have that skill set, that will definitely really strengthen your resume, and really help you, put you out there with your career growth. But again, going back to the soft skills, be curious, ask questions, be confident.
There was a meme I saw one time, and it wasn't too long ago. Everybody's probably watched The Wizard of Oz, and that one scene where the guy's behind the curtain and stuff, and they said, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. And the meme was, when they pulled back the curtain, there was a guy sitting there working on Revit. It's a sorely needed skill set in this industry that I think probably has the most opportunity for growth right now, if you know Revit. So, what a great conversation! I appreciate Shelley, Heather, and Teresa for coming on and sharing your experiences and your insights. The one thing I hope everybody takes away from this is be supportive of everybody in this industry. Let's make this industry better, and it's better when everybody's involved in it. Till next time,
Right.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
Now you know the deal. Subscribe and share the show. Help us spread the real. Stay connected. Do it right. Let's talk cabling. Let's talk cabling.